all in balance. Hello, everybody. For those of you who haven't met, I'm Randy Road. I am one of the moderators of this Educause XR in Education group. I wear a bunch of hats. I was just sharing, I'm a new faculty member at the Southern Connecticut State University, helping their computer science uh, department start some courses in XR development, and we're starting a course next week, so I'm very excited about that. The fellow moderator, Sean, you want to say hello?
Hey everybody, I'm Sean Haas, Senior Director of Instructional Technology here at San Diego State University, and also the Director of our Virtual Immersive Teaching and Learning, or VITAL Research Center. And thrilled to see an awesome participation and more people coming in as we speak. So I'll turn it back to Randy to introduce uh, our session for today.
Yeah. First, though, a couple of announcements. One is one of the other things I've been involved with. I've mentioned this before. The Immersive Learning Research Network has a June conference. ImmersiveLRN.org is the address. If you don't know of them, you should. They've been around for 10 years. They have been hosting academic conferences in the world of immersive learning. Um, it is a small yet, very fantastic group of people, wonderful international scope, which I find personally refreshing. Many of the organizations here in the States tend to be very, North American focused. So it's nice to have that exposure. Mark your calendars. In Chicago should be well oriented for those of us who are in the Northeast or in North America. Um, Website there. I think many of you have hopefully have put in paper proposals for their practitioner stream. Just a reminder, if you haven't done that, the submissions close tomorrow. So you have until the end of the day tomorrow to get something in. So if you were thinking about it and you didn't quite get there, you still have a day to do it. The other thing is I'm helping at the conference to organize a kind of vendor demonstrators exhibit area. If within your, dealings with vendors, there is a vendor who seems particularly eager to get into the education market, is looking for opportunities to get in front of people, please direct them to me. I would love to chat with them. The vendor fees are very reasonable. As I've said to some of the vendors, I said, you can go to the big, huge conferences and you'll get lost in a sea of, if you come to iLearn, you will be a star because you will be in a relatively small group and you will be meeting with faculty members, instructional designers, the people who really make the decisions on this stuff, rather than the CIOs who, they just do what we tell them, right? So at any rate, please, if you've got anybody, send me a suggestion or, suggest that they reach out, and I'd love to talk to them about what we're putting together for that. We meet monthly, these meetups. We are always looking for people to present. The spring schedule at the moment is wide open, which means Sean and I have to get to work on putting together some more presentations. You can help us out. You can make us look like stars by offering to lead a conversation. As I say to all of our presenters, this is a very friendly group. This is we're always just looking for people with works in progress or things you're deploying in the classroom. So if you have something using extended reality technologies and you're willing to come and share what you're doing, you will find an extremely receptive audience here. Reach out to me or Sean either through the forum itself or just email us, and we'd love to hear from you and get you on the schedule. Speaking of initiatives from this group, just a quick highlight for something Sean is leading. The building up of a shared XR materials library. Sean, any quick updates? I'm putting you on the spot here,
Yeah,
but
no worries. Yeah, so a couple updates. One is we're collaborating with an NSF-funded group called Recite. I'll share some more details in the chat here in a moment to actually build this library. We did a big survey last year. Many of you participated in that. Thank you. We ended up publishing the results of that in Educause Review, which is linked here at the bottom. And we're now getting ready to launch it this year at some point, again, collaborating with that group called Recite. And we'll be certainly sharing it when it's ready to start accepting content, anything from 3D models, 360 videos, VR and AR apps, lesson plans, etc. So again, this is to serve as a repository, an open educational resource repository that we're calling Open Educational Extended Reality, or OEXR library, such that we can upload, download, cross-pollinate, etc. with these XR resources. So yeah, more info coming soon.
fantastic. Thank you. So today I'm turning it over to our speakers. I'll let you all introduce yourselves. I'm going to stop sharing now. And Brian and company, let me turn it over to you. And thank you very much.
Fantastic. Jen, did you want to do an initial introduction, then we'll get started, or what would you like to do?
So Jen is doing last minute tweaks, so I'll go ahead and go and then let you go. And then if Jen is ready, then she can come introduce herself. But I'm Georgia Davis. I'm with the University of Arizona's Center for Assessment, Teaching, and Technology. So we're basically the teaching and learning center on campus. We deal with assessment at kind of the big accreditation level, teaching, and of course that's teaching practice and using evidence-based practices. And then technology is both helping people use educational technology, the buttons and clicks, and then also how they apply it to their course goals. And I'm the director of multimedia and creative initiatives, and I'll circle back around and talk about that later. You don't need any more from me. So Jen is back. I can let Jen introduce herself. She's sitting next to me, so I'm gonna slide my computer over.
That's easier. Hi, everyone. I'm Jennifer Nichols. I am the director of Catalyst Studios, which is a makerspace in the main library here at the University of Arizona. And we have been collaborating with Dr. Carter for 10 years now. He and I have collaborated for 10 years doing different immersive technology projects. So we're really excited to come together. And later on, we'll talk to you a little bit about our campus-wide initiatives that brought us together to bring what Brian's been doing for a long time to the rest of campus. Thank you.
All right, fantastic. Thank you both so much. And you'll hear both from both of them here in just a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we'll get going with an initial part of the presentation, and then we'll continue with what I think is going to be the more exciting part of the presentation in just a little bit. Now, on the first screen here, you'll see a QR code. Now, if those of you that have iOS devices, if you would like to scan this QR code, it will download an application called the FormaVision application. Now, if you'd like to see the volumetric broadcast using the application, please download this app, and then you'll launch it, and I'll give you some instructions on how to get into the room that we'll be in here in just a few moments. The advantage of doing so is that you'll be able to see the remaining slides that we will be displaying during the live broadcast through the application augmented in your space. If you scan the QR code, which we will show later on just before we start the broadcast, you will only be able to see the holograms or the volumetric streams of myself and Jennifer and Georgia. So just keep that in mind with regards to the difference. We'll be sort of kind of referring to slides, but you'll still be able to see us if you just don't want to install anything. So I'll give you a few moments if you want to download that application. We won't be making use of it for a moment, so you have a few minutes to get that installed and everything, and then I'll give you some further instructions in just a few moments. Okay. All right, so just a couple of, really introductory slides, and then we'll get to the fun part. I'm Brian Carter, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, born and raised, 10 years in the Air Force. I taught high school for a couple of years. Got my PhD at the University of Missouri Columbia, taught at the University of Central Missouri for about 14 years, and I've been here for about 12 years. As Jennifer mentioned, we've been collaborating almost since I arrived, and the library has been just an amazing resource, growing from a little one-room sort of catalyst space that was over in another building to this huge space that they have now that Jen and Georgia will talk about a little bit later on. But I know that many of you collaborate and are in partnership, or maybe are even housed in your libraries. And I just love the way that we've been able to continue that collaboration. The research agenda that I personally have been on has started with the Virtual Harlem Project back in the late 90s. And it was a project that was one of the very early representations of African American life and culture in full VR in 1996, 97. We were working with, some really, really primitive tools now, but at that time they were pretty advanced. And we built a full-on sort of representation of Harlem that you could go down streets and go inside a few buildings and hear music and things like that. I also was able to introduce that to some students as I was a professor in Vitae at the Sorbonne, and some great collaborations within that space between the students here and there within virtual worlds. And many of you know how when Second Life was launched, how many of us that weren't necessarily 3D modelers or coders were just thrilled at the opportunity to be able to finally have a massive multi-user environment that made it fairly easy to build, but that you could do some things with the fully functional economic system and all of those things that we were having fun with for quite a few years. Been doing things with alternative methods of appreciation of African American life and culture through digital scanning and ethnographies and digital storytelling, 360 videography, and all sorts of things. And as a result of some of that work, I was asked to be the director of the Center for Digital Humanities here at the University of Arizona. When we formed our center, we formed it to really, work with faculty in the College of Humanities first. But later on, when we started to do many more projects and apply for grants and getting grants, we expanded to basically almost a global set of collaborative partners. We work with museums and art galleries and cultural centers. We work with other college campuses, collaborating with faculty members. We're doing some really cool things with the Smithsonian, and we just have a lot of really interesting projects going on. We work with a number of different technologies. I have, 18 students now. We started with just one, and this is some of the support that we're getting from the university or from the college in order to keep that mission going, which is much appreciated, as you can possibly imagine. We're all funded on soft money. You're all familiar with how that works, right? And so we're keeping the grant, cycle going almost all the time in order to keep the lights on and keep the bills paid and things like that, keep students employed. All the students are paid developers, and they work on real world projects ranging from advanced websites to 3D scanning and drone photography, etc. Our mission and vision statements basically, sort of dictate that we not only introduce these tools and work with faculty members, but we also have a community focus. And you'll hear some of that in just a few moments with regards to one of the installations that we've done. We have internships, undergraduate opportunities, etc. So really students do all the work here, which is really quite exciting. In fact, one of them is here now that's going to be maybe answering some of the technical questions that you have regarding the volumetric capture setup that we currently have going on here at the center. Now, you can imagine that here at a center like this, we have a lot of different initiatives going on. We've got maybe 15 active projects right now, ranging from 360 videography, automated assistance, augmented reality, virtual reality, holography and volumetric video capture, 3D scanning, and so on and so forth. And this changes all the time. And of course, having to choose out of all the different technologies out there, what we're going to focus on, because, a center can't do everything, right? You know, having to narrow that down is really based on the skill set of the students that come in here that are you know, ultimately paid employees. You know, we've done things with poetry centers and the Legacy Museum here on campus. I'm sorry, at Tuskegee University, and a number of other campuses, campus-wide initiatives. It looks like I'm going through all my slides here. Let me just expand this a little bit so I can skip down to the ones that I want to get to. So 2 seconds, film strip. There we go. Yeah, it's not skipping the slides it's supposed to be skipping. I do apologize for that. Okay, so one of the things that I think you'll find to be very interesting, if you'd like to scan this QR code, it just makes use of your camera. You can see where we are currently with our volumetric capture and broadcasting initiative. When we got into this many years ago, this must have been about 2019, I was introduced to volumetric capture through an award that we received from the Knight Foundation, and we collaborated with a group in Philadelphia called the Color Girls Museum of Philadelphia. Receiving that award from the Knight Foundation, we were invited out to Microsoft's headquarters in Washington State, and that's where I was introduced to their volumetric capture initiatives. You know, they had this huge volumetric studio that had 140 cameras or maybe more than that, no shadows whatsoever. It was absolutely gorgeous, and they charged a lot of money for it. But then is where I really realized that, hey, that, you know, the future may not necessarily be fully immersive. It's going to be something that will allow us to, you know, sort of be embodied within a real-time, you know, sort of space, and this kind of, you know, gave us the initiative to get going. We began working on our volumetric capture stage once we moved into our new space, and we have currently a 14 by 14 square foot rigging, and within that rigging we have our volumetric cameras set up. We began using 2 different systems, and I'm just going to give you our sort of journey here, because I know that all of you are technically oriented. You're probably curious about what platforms we're using and cost and things like that. We'll get to all of that, but we started using 2 different systems back in 2020, I think it was. One of them was called Omnivore. They have since changed their names to Formavision, and the other was called oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Depth Kit. Thank you, Pulai. Depth Kit out of New York. And so, and the reason we had 2 was because for Omnivore broadcasted, but they didn't record, and Depth Kit recorded, but they didn't broadcast. And so I was interested in doing broadcasting because, you know, my dream back then was to, you know, broadcast my volumetric capture into student spaces, and they could then interact with my hologram in real time. And Formavision was, Omnivore was allowing us to do that really quite interestingly. Depth Kit, on the other hand, did some great recording, but back in 2020, the workflow was a little bit clunky to get from a recording to where you could, you know, view that in augmented reality. And you can see here that we've got all kinds of cameras set up, and the cables. We learned the hard way that you got to have a special cable in order to broadcast a volumetric or a depth camera, you know, over, you know, maybe 15 feet or so. You have to have certain types of PCIe cards. We were using 2 different cameras, the RealSense camera as well as the Azure Connect camera, and they have to be staggered at different heights. And we, you know, we're unsure if we were going to mount them permanently to the
We lost Dr. Carter for a minute, right?
Yep. I was seeing if it was me or him for a second.
Yeah, I wasn't
very sure.
It was just getting good. It was just getting really good.
I know, right?
He'll come back in a minute. Georgia, if you guys can maybe assist him.
Did we lose Arizona State entirely?
Maybe their network went down. Oops,
Nope. All
there
right.
goes the share.
So Brian, I can hear his voice through the Formavision, and he's saying that his internet connection went out on his
Okay.
computer.
Oh, there we
like
go.
I'm
You're
back
back.
now.
He's back.
Looks
Hi,
like I'm
Brian,
back
you're
now.
back.
I don't know what happened with that. And I'm on the university's network. Yikes. Okay, let me just continue. All right, can you all still see the presentation?
Perfect.
Okay, fantastic. Sorry about that. So, as I mentioned, DepthKit didn't have their whole workflow worked out, and so we were able to record. But then we found out later on that in order to actually get something into a WebXR environment, that we had to do some additional post processing, and we had to work with a third-party company in order to do some further post processing, put it up on an AWS server, and they would then give us a QR code, which we would then be able to use as a triggered augmented experience. And this was a very, very painful sort of post processing workflow. We had to surround our volumetric stage with green screening, and then we had to go in and manually mask out everything that was happening outside of what was being captured by those depth sensing cameras. Now you can imagine that having to do that almost frame by frame was quite painful. Yeah, we could take it into After Effects, and their AI did a fairly good job, but it took students sometimes several days in order to process maybe a 3 or 4 minute capture. And you can see here that we began with one side open, but then we figured out that in order to really do a good capture, we had to enclose everything. And so we could only see from a camera that was inside of our stage what was actually going on in there during our various captures. One of the other very interesting individuals that we were able to record was Dante Loretta. He's still living, and so he's the one that sent the capsule to the Bennu asteroid, brought back a sample, and he's explaining what he's doing here. And this recording came out actually really good. After he came in, they were doing a conference presentation someplace, and they were just doing poster sessions. And so we put a QR code on his poster, and then people could actually hear from him whenever they came by and saw the poster presentation. If you would like to see the output of that recording that we made in the previous video, scan this QR code, please, and you'll be able to see what that recording actually looked like. Now, interestingly enough, these are some of our very early attempts. He's not facing you, so you can just kind of spin him around with a pinch and drag. Again, lessons learned. You can spin him around with a pinch and drag and make him larger or smaller if you like. Once that QR code activates, please remember to click allow to allow the application to access your camera, your microphone, and your gyroscope. If you disallow any of those, then something may not work properly. So when you look at our early attempts, they weren't bad. I mean, they were okay for the time. I mean, this is still back in 2020, 2021. Not many groups were doing this, and those that were, we were all going through the same painful processing and post-processing setup. Now, shortly after just a few years ago, Omnivore was able to not only change their name and restructure, but they started doing recording. And so we were then able to stop using DepthKit and Omnivore and just focus totally on setting up Omnivore. What they also did was they set up a system whereby the depth sensing cameras, the RealSense depth sensing cameras, would only capture information that was within a certain boundary. So we didn't have to worry about the green screens anymore because it wasn't capturing anything outside of that boundary. You can make that bigger, smaller, taller, or shorter based on whatever it was that you were scanning, which was really cool. So that took out all of the post-processing. They also made it very easy to work with us in order to host our own videos on our own AWS instance. So basically, our workflow now is that we can broadcast and record simultaneously. That recording is then processed by our techs. They send it up to an AWS server, which gives them a URL. And then that URL is used in whatever application we wish in order to set up the augmented reality experience. We're using Eighth Wall right now, so we pop that into an Eighth Wall project, and then it generates a QR code for us. So that's our whole setup. You can see here what that looks like now that we're able to do this whole thing without having to use green screens. just gonna mute that real quick. And so, we coach our talent that comes in on, what to wear, staying away from reflective clothing or clothing that may be too baggy or whatever the case might be. Making sure that we had enough coverage. If we needed to adjust cameras, we could do all of that. But it really is turning out to be quite nice. We can also at least announce that we have one of these stages set up in a community center, and I believe it's one of the early sort of initiatives like this, whereby we're encouraging members of the community to come in and record family histories, ethnographic narratives, community histories or narratives, and it's really quite popular. This was during one of the grand openings that we did that's connected to a national telecommunications grant that we received through the center, and with some collaborators on campus and around Southern Arizona, that we were able to set up a computer lab, and that computer lab also incorporated a volumetric capture stage. So that's really the background of where we are and how we got where we are right now. As I mentioned before, we're focused on Formavision, and it's been a very good relationship. Their customer service is fantastic, and the cost really isn't that bad. If we get into that question, we can definitely do so. Now comes the fun part, right? So if you scan the QR code earlier, and I can bring that slide back up again, if any of you would like to do that, this will take you to the iOS App Store, and you can download the Formavision application and then go ahead and launch that. If you launch that application, you will be asked to enter a room name. That room number is that room name UA-CDH1 and the number 1. So UA-CDH1 is the room name, and then you can enter your name. Now, for those of you that chose not to download the QR code, you can scan this code with your camera app. As I mentioned before, you won't see slides, but at least you'll be able to see and hear Georgia and Jen and myself as holograms when you turn your audio up on your mobile device. So we're all going to hop over onto the
Brian, would one of you just stick the room name in the chat to just
perfect. I can do
Thank
that. Yes. Let's see. Chat. Where are you? There we go.
And is that UA-CDH1? Because
Yes.
it's just in there, I think, already.
Oh, yeah, somebody put it there. Thank you. Thank you so much. Either Jen, Jen put that there. Thank you.
there it is.
Okay, so we're going to
Thanks.
hop over onto the stage. If you'd like, you're more than welcome to just scan the QR code. That'll also take you right to the room. You can put your name in there if you like, and we'll see you over there in a moment. Okay.
And Brian, just for the sake of
Mhm.
feedback and things, since we'll be using our microphones and that, do you recommend people stay here but mute and kind of turn down their volume on their computers?
Yes. Yes, because we'll come back here afterwards. So don't
So for
don't get
now,
off Zoom. Yes.
perfect.
Yeah,
So
just
now we'll
turn.
mute, but also turn the volume down from the speaker.
Perfect. Okay.
All right.
Great.
Thanks,
Thanks.
everybody.
We'll see y'all over there in just a second. Jen, we'll see you in Georgia in the room. Okay. In fact, let's see. If one of you can please unmute your microphone and let me know how the audio is coming in through the volumetric broadcast. And in that way, we'll know to make any adjustments on our end before we start talking. Everyone froze? No. I wonder if it's because so many people. I'm sorry. Okay, just to let you know, we're going to be ending this meeting and joining again because it looks like it froze. So give us 1 second, we'll restart. Okay, we're restarting now, folks. Give us 2 seconds to get back on. So you should all be able to hear me, hopefully through the broadcast. I will leave my Zoom mic muted for now. We're going to go ahead and bring up some slides here in just a moment, and then we'll see if Jen and Georgia can join us again. So here's our slide presentation. Fantastic. And hopefully you all can still hear me. And if someone that has their video turned on, if you can just wave and let me know if you can hear my audio through the broadcast. I see Chris has, oh, fantastic. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate that. Good. Okay, so thank you very much, Lisa, and thank you all. Okay, great. So we're going to get going here in just a second. Jen and Georgia will be here in just a moment. Just giving you some of the features that Omnivore has recently incorporated. They enabled slides behind you, so we can have either Google Slides or PowerPoint or whatever that screen share happens to be behind or with the presenter. We can also incorporate 3D objects. We're not going to do that right now because we got 40 people that are trying to access and we don't want to strain the system too much. But you can imagine that we have 3D objects that are available for those that run the application that can actually manipulate those on their mobile device. Okay. So this is, part of what we do in my class. I'm actually teaching classes using this technology over the last couple of semesters. At the beginning of the class, my students scan a QR code and they can be VR headset because there is an APK for the Meta 3 headset that they can then use that as their viewing device. There's also an application for the Magic Leap 2, although they don't make that anymore, but that's what they started with. We were in South by Southwest and we had Magic Leap 2 there. We're able to do some really cool broadcasting some folks on. It was really kind of neat. Or they can do this on their mobile device using the application. They can scan the QR code minus the slides, but this is also being simultaneously recorded during class. And so those that either miss the slides or miss the live session, they can always go back and watch the recording, and that does include the slides. Okay, so we're able to do some really cool things with this, and it's only getting better. Their algorithm is getting better every time they do an update where it's in here. Looks like we crashed one more time. We will be right back. And I think what it is that they have a limitation, or there may be some sort of limitation on maybe more than 40 or 50 users simultaneously viewing the live broadcast, or it may be the mode in which those users are accessing it. So hopefully we'll get back in just a few moments, and then we'll be able to have Georgia and Jennifer come in, and we can go through their slides very quickly. All right, we should be coming back up here in just a moment. Hi, everybody. Sorry about that. Okay, so basically, as the slide presentation's coming back up, Jen and Georgia, there you all are. I'm going to go ahead and step off the stage because maybe that'll help with our back as well. You all can go through your slides, and then as soon as you finish, I'll just come back, and then we'll be able to go from there. You can see how we can have more than one stage connected to one another. Jen and Georgia are over at the Catalyst space on the other side of campus, and we could have another stage connected to this. I'm going to step out, and then that's what it is. Okay, Jen and Georgia are coming in back in just a moment. We're going to have to restart this one more time, and then we'll
Oh,
be
no.
able to go ahead and have them on. It looks like Poulad is restarting that. I just stepped off the stage, so Jen and Georgia, you all will be able to go ahead and go through the slides as you see fit. Okay, Poulad's bringing that up now.
Okay, I have the mic on for Zoom just to say we're restarting. We have a mic for the form of vision. We're not sure which one is picking up what, but we'll keep
Okay.
talking while.
Okay.
And just what Brian said is we are at Catalyst Studios, which is in the main library. So we're just about a quarter mile away from where Brian is. And we're in our green screen room right now, which we have, whoops, feedback. We've added the volumetric cameras to this space so we can put them up and calibrate them and take them down, and people can use it as a traditional green screen space as well. One of our big barriers to setting this up for us was the technical knowledge. So Brian's students have been instrumental in helping us. They've created an entire protocol for setting up and calibrating the cameras that we are teaching our students and learning ourselves. The more times we do it, the better we're getting at it. But one of the things we wanted to point out was that it is calibrated for one person. So you'll see that the resolution is somewhat compromised for seeing Georgia and I simultaneously. So another thing we've been dealing with is the proper lighting so that we don't get a lot of green spill or lost spaces. So we have reoriented kind of off of the green area to compensate for that. So those are some of the things that we've learned. So this semester, Dr. Carter is having his students in one of his African American literature classes come and schedule time with one of our student workers to record their presentations, just like we're trying to do today. They'll have their slides behind them and record themselves doing a presentation on one of the authors that they have done research on. So that is our pilot for the semester. And then simultaneously, we're hoping to demonstrate this to other instructors on campus as something that they might try as well. So that's the collaboration that's coming out of the library, because we are a public space open to everyone and a little bit more accessible, hopefully, than Dr. Carter's lab individually. So I'll let Georgia tell you why and how we all collaborate together, maybe.
Well, so it was about a year ago, Jen came to me because as a library providing XR equipment to campus, a lot of people were going to the library and asking about access to XR. And lots of people, of course, are applying for some of our local campus grants to get funding to help buy equipment. And they're looking for support, so they kept turning to the library. So Jen came to me and my colleague at the Teaching and Learning Center to say, let's apply for what we call Provost Investment Fund grant and see if we can start to get our head wrapped around, why all these different people are sometimes asking for money for the same thing. And the provost kind of came to Jen and charged her with looking into this. So Jen spearheaded writing the grant, and we did get it from the provost and use that to start what we're calling the XR Collaborative. And what it is we're bringing together people on campus who are using XR in some way, whether it's research or teaching practice, to share what they're doing. We have the money from the grant, but that's about it. We don't have a lot of funds. So what we're trying to do is first was figure out what is everybody doing on campus. So we did a series of interviews, talking to people, again, both with research and teaching, to find out what they were doing, how they got where they are, the challenges that they've had, what equipment they might need. And something we've discovered through this whole process is on one side of campus, you have somebody who's got headsets. On another side of campus, you've got somebody who's got space. And the person who's got space needs headsets, and the person with headsets needs space. And so what we've been able to do somewhat through the XR Collaborative is start to get people together and start sharing resources. Something else we do is we also have monthly speakers, and so people will come in and present their work. And so we do these monthly meetings with speakers, but we also then provide opportunities in every meeting for folks to step up and talk about what they're doing and then talk about what their needs are. We also have a Padlet board where people can put up their needs. And so we're trying to create these spaces where people can say, this is the thing I have, but this is the thing I'm missing. and then see if there's other people or resources on campus that can step in and help. And so far, we've been really, really successful. So I've got a list of some of the things that have come out of the last year, some of the collaborations that have come out of the last year on campus. So I've got the list because I can't remember them all. So Jay Sampson from the Norton School of Consumer Sciences, he's now collaborating with Ash Black, who is in our Office of Research, Innovation, and Impact. Ash Black created this AI core, and they're basically working within AI and VR, and they're working with Jay now to develop a digital twin, which is basically a digital replica of this consumer sciences lab that just got built. And come to find out, consumer sciences, there's a lot of data, there's a lot of research that happens. And so this lab will be using augmented reality to do quite a bit of research. And so this digital twin is the first step of that. The Adobe Creative Campus team, which is in the Teaching and Learning Center, has now partnered with Ash Black also to train his AI core, and which is a core of students that just keeps growing. So I'm not sure what the number is right now, but they're training them now to use the 3D design software in Adobe. Jay, the Adobe team, myself, and an art professor is now collaborating on a mural that will go up in the Consumer Sciences Lab it'll be a static mural, but it'll use Adobe Aero. And when you hold your phone up with the Adobe Aero app open, you'll see animations. So the mural will seem to come to life. Another collaboration that's come out of the past year was Dr. Paul Gignac from Cellular Molecular Medicine. He contributed 3D anatomy models to an adventure platform that Ash Black developed that allows users to shrink in size and then go into spaces and explore nanotechnologies. Ash's AI core also found a temporary home for the summer in the Health Sciences Design Lab through connections to Matthew Brooks, who's in the College of Health Sciences. We have an associate professor of environmental science, Dr. Jacqueline Maximilian, who announced her intention to respond to an NSF solicitation for research on innovative technologies for enhanced learning with support from partners from the collaborative. So we're now seeing people applying for grants. Expanded literacy in XR education and technology knowledge, skills, and implications for all of University of Arizona stakeholders, because we're all learning through each other. School of Art professor Joe Farbrook has shared his PIF-funded VR, and that's the Provost Investment Fund VR classroom facility. But again, this is with Matthew Briggs from the Health Sciences Design for a data visualization and VR development course. So we're seeing some new courses come out of this. Matthew Briggs and Brian have developed a vertically integrated project around XR development. And then, of course, the project that Brian just presented to you, the collaboration with the library to create this volumetric capture station that's available to anyone on campus. And one last thing I want to tell you about too is something that our unit and our team is doing with the Consumer Sciences Lab is we've also put in a photogrammetry station, and there's a slide showing the wider Consumer Sciences Lab space with the photogrammetry station. And so this is an arm that has 3 cameras that are stationary and calibrated so that you can put something on a turntable underneath of this arm. And if you move on to the next slide, there's a picture of a mannequin on this platform. And so the platform spins and the cameras take a series of pictures and then software stitches all of this together. So that is also being made available to everyone on campus who has what we call a net ID. And anyone can come in then and take an object and put it on this platform, render it in 3D, and then use it inside any kind of AR, VR, immersive kind of platform. So, Brian, anybody have questions? Yeah. You want to toss it back to Brian?
I can come back. I'm Zoom and the volumetric capture. We lost your vol cap, and I know it's got something to do with capacity. So we're working on that. I know you all understand how it is with live broadcasts sometimes. But so far we've had a fairly good success with the stability of this. And I'll move back over to our Zoom broadcast here in just a moment, and we can all entertain questions and everything over there. If you had more technical questions, I've got one of our students here that can answer anything related to bandwidth or technical specifications of the computers and things like that. And then Georgia and Jen are there to also answer questions regarding Catalyst if you like. So we'll go ahead and stop this broadcast. I hope you all got a chance to at least see this, and I'm going to head back over to the Zoom and we'll continue from there. Okay. Thank you all. See you in a second. Oh, there's Georgia.
All right, I'm gonna grab my computer. Go back up there.
All right, fantastic. Let me stop my share here, and that way you all can see us in real life. And if you do have any questions or anything like that, please definitely let us know, and we'll be more
Brian.
than happy to respond to those. Yes.
Yeah, fantastic. I'll say for me, it took a while to kind of figure out how to make it work. Once I got it working, it was like, oh my God, this is so cool. And so there's definitely kind of an onboarding sort of piece to it. How are you using this for the live with your students? How are you using that? And what do you do for onboarding? What do you do with, devices they need to use? How are you managing sort of those practical aspects of making it work?
Yes, well, for me, I do this in two different settings. We've been doing it mostly, or actually exclusively, in an online setting up until now. Looks like my video may have gone out someplace, but oh no, I'm not going to worry about that. In an online setting, and so the students basically are given written instructions on how to scan a QR code first, and then if they can see just the plain hologram, those with iOS devices are encouraged to download the iOS application, and then they're given another recording that they can then use with the iOS application. Then we start the live broadcast. So it's a sort of a scaling up of the experience so that students aren't left out. We also have a URL because we know not all students have cell devices or cell mobile devices. We have a URL that students can go to and they can access this on their computer, and it's just as sort of like in a blank void, like a Unity void or something like that. But you can at least still see the hologram, and then later on you can go back and watch the recording.
Super, thanks.
Yeah, this
I'm sure
semester
there's a million questions out there. Please just feel free to unmute yourselves and
please
ask
do. And
ask.
while you're doing that, this semester we're really excited because with the setup that's over at the library, I'm requiring my students to go over and make their own holograms as part of one of our assignments. And so students are scheduling time with one of the interns at the library. They'll be making recordings. The library has the same setup that we do as far as being able to record, broadcast, record, and then put it up onto an AWS server, and then get the required information to put into Eighth Wall. They will then process that at the library, give the students a URL as well as a QR code, and then they can use that as part of the fulfilling of that assignment. So students are going to get this sort of practical experience with regards to a presentation, but they're doing it via hologram. So questions that you all have? I know there are probably many.
There is one in the chat about what are the use cases. So what kinds of courses are you using this for?
Sure. So I'm currently teaching African American literature and Harlem Renaissance and Intro to African American Studies, Intro to Africana Studies, and Afrofuturism using this technology. All courses taught online. And interestingly enough, even though we might have 40 or 50 people in an online class, you can't require them to attend unless it's a hybrid course. And so I give students the option of attending the live session or watching the recording. So one of the reasons why we're getting more experience about having, maybe 30, 40, or 50 people in a live session, thank you, 30 or 40, 50 people in a live session and getting that little bit of instability is because typically maybe 10 or 15 students might show up at the live session and the rest are watching the recording. And we can tell that based on the analytics that we're able to get from Eighth Wall. So we know the number of students that are watching recordings later on. The installation that we have over at the Dunbar Pavilion, which is a community pavilion, it's in a school that is the historically segregated school here in Tucson. That installation is being used for community members that want to come in and record family histories, community narratives, or any sort of recording for, say, their business or anything like that. And during the life of this grant, which is one more year, they can come in and do those recordings for free.
So here's our question. This will tap into one of Sean's interests. So once you've got the holograms recorded, how are you making them available? So how do people, is there a library? Did you already sign up for Sean's thing because you're interested in a library? How are you doing managing the content?
Yes, so we're hosting them on our AWS server, and then the students post their URL or their QR code in certain areas, so the rest of the students have access to that, and they can watch their peers' recordings. For those that were working with various community partners, we host it on our AWS server, and we deliver to them a URL and a QR code that they can then put on their flyers, their mailers, their website, or wherever they wish to host or to post that QR code for the community or whomever to access the hologram. And we're also, one of our developers made it very easy so that once you scanned the QR code once, you can skip to successive holograms that may be a part of a series. So you don't have to keep scanning a code, accessing, and clicking, allow, and then doing it all again. You can just continue with a sort of a series of holograms if they are sort of recorded sequentially.
Yeah, and right now we don't have any sort of repository on campus or sharing outside of like the processes that Brian Carter's figured out. But this is something that the XR Collaborative is starting to talk about, because we're realizing we not only do we need artifacts that we can then show people to make them excited about the technology and then help think through ways of using the technology. We also then want to have artifacts that we can share with each other, but we really haven't gotten there yet. So that's something we would love to hear more from other people about how they've managed to have some successes in that area.
Sean.
Yeah, I have a question, but maybe Rodolfo, I see your question in the chat. Do you want to ask that one?
Sure, I'll take it. So Brian, great presentation. I loved it. I've seen a few volumetric videos in the past, but this looks really cool, especially because you're not having to go to Microsoft to have it done. But basically it boils down to some of the newer technologies. So instead of capturing the traditional photogrammetry using traditional software, or even newer software that gets you a mesh at the end, Gaussian splats have done a little bit of a revolution in how you can like reframe how you scan spaces. Do you know if this is being used for the volumetric video capture or holographic capture?
I've not seen any live Gaussian splats, but I have seen Gaussian splats that you can capture with your phone and then import those or have those accessible directly into a headset. Teleport, made by Varjo, has an excellent application. It just came out a few days ago, or maybe a few weeks ago, that you can see your scan right in your headset right afterwards. I've seen an example. I should take that back. I've seen an example of a Gaussian splat, and it looked like a video, but I think it was just a series of sequential frames that someone then just later on animated to make it look like it was playing like a video. But I have not seen any live Gaussian splats yet. That's going to be amazing when that's available. Right now, I think the compression method that Omnivore has incorporated, Formavision has incorporated into their algorithm, is actually fairly good. Pula, do you have a microphone over there? What's the bandwidth requirement for these particular streams? Do you know? Oh, we can't hear you yet. He's coming over here, so he'll be able to tell you what some of these requirements are.
Hello. Hi, I'm Puad. So the requirements for one hologram is that you need to have a download speed of 30 megabits per second. And that goes for the host as well as the client. So if you're on your phone and you're joining a live broadcast, the speed that's required is that will have like a smooth recording is 30 megabits per second.
Sorry, I have a question. From the Zoom world where you multiplex the video stream. So if you have co-located folks at locations, for instance, are the 3 video streams getting multiplexed into the single stream that gets sent to everyone, or do you have 30 megabits per stream for like volumetric video being casted?
Did you hear that question? Oh, he didn't hear the question. Hold on.
Sorry about that.
Can you ask it again? Sorry about that.
Yeah, of course. So with Zoom, for instance, if you have a lot of folks sending video signal at the same time, there's a way that Zoom can multiplex the signals into a single stream based on what the user wants to receive. So for the volumetric video, if you have 3 presenters in different locations, so you basically have 30 megabits per presenter being sent to everyone on the receiving end. Nothing gets multiplexed into a single combined thing, right?
No. So yeah, you need to have a 30 megabit per second per hologram. Yeah. So if you have 3, that would be a 90 megabit per second download speed.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much. This is very helpful. And
Yeah,
thank Brian
sure.
and thanks, Ron.
Ron?
Yeah, super cool. Thank you, Brian and team, for sharing. It's really exciting to see.
Thank you. I see where someone posted something,
Um,
which is really cool. I can't wait to try that. It looks like they got what 10 seconds of video that you can do.
Very cool. Hey, quick question. We're also using Eighth Wall here at San Diego State, and we've taken a kind of unique approach where we have physical sculptures on campus of our Kumeyaay land acknowledgement, the Native American people that are here in San Diego. And the QR code that are on these physical sculptures leads to Eighth Wall, which is fine and it works great right now. And obviously we can change the target of that QR code in the future, but we're at a point right now where we're like, okay, what did we get ourselves into paying for Eighth Wall in perpetuity, because these are permanent sculptures now on campus. So just wondering if you've done any thinking about that. And I think it relates to Randy's prompt about, places to store this content. Obviously, AWS has its own cost structure, but from our experience, Eighth Wall is much more expensive in terms of delivering the content. So any thoughts or insights you have on that?
Yes, actually, what you may consider is if you're storing your 3D objects in Sketchfab, if you have one of the cultural heritage accounts for Sketchfab or a Pro account, that will deliver a QR code for you as well. You just turn on the AR feature in Sketchfab, and then that way you can use the QR code that they deliver. That way you don't have to worry about going through Eighth Wall as a secondary AR mediator, because they're not hosting anything on Eighth Wall. It's just the sort of a pass through in many respects.
Super helpful. Thank you. And I know there was some discussion earlier in 2024 about some changes to Sketchfab. I don't know if that was included in there, but I'm definitely going to check that out.
So Sketchfab was purchased by Epic Games, and they've turned their store into something called the Fab Store. And so that's if you plan to sell any of your objects, but Sketchfab still is creating accounts, at least as far as I know. They're still creating cultural heritage accounts. And we've been able to, along with many of our museum partners, apply for that, which is the equivalent of a Pro account, which gives you all of these features, much more upload file sizes, as well as the AR feature, which will give you that QR code that I was talking about.
Awesome. Thanks, Brian.
Let's see other questions that you have.
Yeah, we've got Ty, we can stay long as our host can stay, but we're at the top of the hour. So is there somebody who's wants to be the last official question?
Someone asked why we're using this type of modality for instruction. What's the benefit? Well, that's what we're trying to find out. It's an excellent question. We're actually doing an IRB approved study over the last couple of semesters that's measuring what this is doing with regards to teaching and learning. We're banking that the presence that's associated with holograms versus, say, a Zoom meeting might do something different with regards to student engagement, interactivity, attention, all those kinds of things. And these are all questions in the survey that students get after each week. And so we've collected maybe 30 or 40 responses up to this point. We're tabulating those after every semester. We presented them at EduLearn in Palma, Spain last year. Hopefully we'll be able to do the same thing this year to really look at how students are being affected by this sort of modality. But that's a great question. We're trying to find out.
And the technology being used for the captures, so Azure Connect cameras and this Forma.
No, I'm sorry. That probably was missed when I was when we were having those outages. We started using the Azure Connect camera when we were using DepthKit, and they use Azure Connect, and we were using the Cinema version of DepthKit for someone that asked a little bit earlier. And now we're using the RealSense, the Intel RealSense camera. I think it's the D455, and the Intel RealSense camera is pretty good, but that's the one that FormaVision requires. It's only 720p, which is not too bad, and I guess for broadcasting that might be fairly decent. We did just get an instructional technology grant from the library, interestingly enough, that allowed us to purchase another kind of camera called the Femto Bolt. FEMTO Bolt. Yeah, and the Femto Bolt is a fantastic camera. We're testing it now with a platform called Scanned Reality, I believe. Scanned reality. And but the downside, once again, about another platform is that they don't broadcast. They do very, very high quality recordings, but the file sizes are huge. So their compression isn't quite as robust as that of Formavision. And they also do snapshots, which something Formavision does not do. So you can actually have someone in there, standing in a T pose, and then we can, of course, rig that person. So these platforms, do one thing or the other very, very well. And if you want to do one or the other, sometimes you got to have two. The cool thing about scanned reality is that it's not that expensive. It's about $300 a month. The downside well, not the downside, but one of the other things to consider with regards to Formavision, and no one asked, so I'm just going to tell you, is that they are relatively expensive. They're about $5,000 a month. And so when you think about the cost associated with doing something like this, it does cost at this moment. I hope that cost comes down. We're fortunately able to share that cost with the library and with the community center where this is installed, so it's not quite as painful. But you can imagine that if we don't have grant funds or if we don't have funding to continue paying that very high subscription fee, then it's going to maybe put something like this in jeopardy in a few years. So that's just something to think about, but hopefully by that time it'll come down a little bit. Do I work with DevKit's owner, a new owner? No, not the new owner. We've worked with some of the other devs that are at DevKit, but we've not talked with them in about a month. I think they just came out with their broadcasting solution not too long ago. So we've had some conversations with them, and we might see where that might pick back up again.
Fantastic. Other questions, or maybe if you posted something that didn't get caught, there's some stuff there. Again, feel free to just unmute yourself and shout it
Please
out.
do. Yeah, please do. Yes. And if I missed any questions, I do apologize. What was the student feedback then regarding the integration of volumetric captures? Most students feel like it's really cool. We have had some students that had some difficulties, and my TA has been able to help work that out. But most students that watch the live broadcast love it. Those that watch the recordings tend to like it. Some ask why we're doing this instead of Zoom, so it's something brand new. But for the most part, most students are very, very favorable. Those that have slower or older phones or on lower or who are on lower bandwidth will sometimes experience a few anomalies, but that seems to be getting smaller and smaller each year. Other questions? Let's see. For the recording size, for a 5-minute recording, it's only about maybe 200 megabytes or something like that. So it's not really that big for recordings. And so, like I said, and on our AWS server, we have adaptive bitrate streaming incorporated. So those that do have a slightly lower bandwidth, they'll still have a pretty good experience.
Fantastic. All right. Well, wonderful presentation. Really exciting to see what you all are doing there, and it will be equally exciting to watch as things progress, as it does in these technologies. Thank you very much for the time and for an extremely informative presentation.
Oh, one more thing I wanted to say just before
Please.
you all leave. As far as consumption devices, we talked about the Meta 3. Of course, you can use the pass-through, the Forma app, and it's the person standing right there. Of course, mobile devices, tablets, and things like that. But this also works with the X-Real glasses. I wish I had mine here. We got a couple of pair of the
cool.
new X-Real Air 2 Ultras, the ones with the cameras that face out that can do 6 degrees freedom of movement. There's an APK that you can sideload onto that, and you can put on a smaller form factor set of glasses and actually see the hologram in front of you as well. We took that to the supercomputing conference in Atlanta a few weeks back, and it turned out to work really well when we broadcasted from here, even into that crowded space. Can you believe that? And we had a really good broadcast. People could put on the glasses or scan the code, and it worked out really well. So for lower bandwidth, which that was, it still works fairly well. And then with those glasses on, it works perfectly.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, and then being able to wear it on your face means you don't have the deal with trying to move things around.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
But thank you all very much. It was a great opportunity. We love to, demonstrate this and test the limitations. Now we know that there might be a cap of around 40 or 50 people that, tends to make things a bit more unstable. But we'll hopefully get a chance to maybe work that out with the developers. So we'll let them know what happened today.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. That's a high bar. You set a high bar, but please, anybody out there who's thinking they want to grab a time in February, please let us know. And we'll be in touch with dates and topics for the rest of the spring.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Everybody.